Hello and welcome to, drum roll please, episode 76 of our Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real podcast, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi ONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. So we're going on 16 years. And our conversation to connect this week is with the inspiring and brilliant and amazing Molly Klipp, joining us from Marysville, Washington. Welcome, Molly.
Hi there. It's nice to see everybody.
So glad you can join us. And thank you so much for sharing with our Exceptional Connections May community.
It's always my pleasure. It's always, being in business for 43 years, you pick up a few things along the way. So to be able to share
Absolutely.
and get some shortcuts for other people, my pleasure.
And you're so generous to share what you've learned. So thank you. So I'm super excited about us rolling up our sleeves and discussing the topic that you shared, which is so important to all of us in our businesses: top tier client care, strategies for attracting and retaining clients. So I'm going to go ahead and before we dive into this conversation, I want to take a moment to introduce Molly to any of our listeners who are listening to the replay and want to get to know her better. So for 32 years, Molly Klipp has worked with thousands of women and developed some of the most successful leaders in all of Aloette Cosmetics as president of Aloette of Seattle. That's when I met you. Her
Yep.
franchise was one of the top 10 franchises for over 20 years. In January of 2014, Molly was trained and certified to be a permanent makeup artist. Carefree Beauty Permanent Makeup was born. In April of 2015, Molly sold her cosmetics franchise and in a year turned her new business into a six-figure income using the skills she developed over her 32 years in business. So this past year, Molly is once again branching out to help women beauty business owners create a blueprint for daily operations to increase profits without stress. Beauty business mastery. Wow, that's lovely. As I was reading this, I was kind of hesitating because I wanted to keep chiming in because a lot of those milestones, I remember you and I, Molly,
Yep.
I think we carpooled to something and we're sitting in front of the driveway of your house and you were telling me about your vision for Carefree Beauty.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
it's just been an honor to be your friend over the years and be able to see those transitions and those milestones that you've not only envisioned and were passionate about, but also executed.
Thank you, Cindy. It's always a pleasure. To me, a vision, when I decide to do something, it's like guns, foot to the pedal, go, putting together and having as much as you possibly can. It doesn't always work in the time frame I wanted. With Carefree Beauty, when I started that, I had to. I was the breadwinner. I am still the breadwinner. And, we were living in a, 4,500 square foot house. And it was like, I still had bills to pay. So, I gave myself a year, set myself up. I gave myself a year to get us back up to six figures and did it in 11 months. And it was, the skill sets you learn from the previous business. And, so much of what I've learned along the way in the last 43 years, I've spoken at different SPCP conventions. I've spoken at different places. And everybody comes up to me afterwards going, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know this." And in my head, and I was talking to Marcel Allen about this the other day, it was like, I just think everybody knows what I know. Right. And every single time it's like, no, we don't know this stuff, And so what it has given me is this sense of urgency with Beauty Business Mastery to help other business owners. And it's not just necessarily beauty business owners, because business is business no matter what it is you're doing. And there are just some strategies that I've learned along the way to shortcut. I've always been a solopreneur. Well, with Aloette, I wasn't. I worked with more people, but still the president. I was, solopreneur in this business. Solopreneur. I've had employees. I've scaled up. and you have to decide for yourself what it is, how you want your business to run and what you want it to look like. And so those are some of the mindsets. That'll be another class. Some of the mindsets that you have to
Mhm.
put together. I'm in the process of writing a book, and all this will be in the book too. So we'll have all of that put together. So Beauty Business Mastery is just something that I started to be able to help other business owners to shortcut. If I look back to, if 28 years old with Aloette, if I knew the stuff that I knew today, I'd have done some things differently. And so if I can get people in that zone to be able to give them the sense of how to get to that point faster, yeah, that's just a blessing that I can be able to take care of.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, that was a great intro, and I want to circle back on one thing before we move forward
Right.
into the content from your talk, because what you shared, as I always mention, was really a teaser, and so we get to dig deeper into the content that you shared, and plus, at the end, the last 10-15 minutes, we'll open it up for Q&A. So be sure to
Okay.
take notes
Yep.
for those of you who are listening, and then we'll open the lines, and you'll be able to ask Molly directly any questions you have. But what I want to just kind of start with is a really important statement that you made. And I think this is something that I've been thinking about. I know it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I've had confirmed by other people, but we all have our zone of genius, as Chuck Oxford would always say, right?
Mhm.
We all have our zone of genius in our area of expertise. And I know for myself too, I think, oh, everybody knows that. And so when we're sitting in that, I think that's a really good place to start is it's like we say in our networking meetings, I know what I know, and how
Mhm.
important that is, that we each have our area of expertise,
Mhm.
and there's so much that we can share with others, but we take it for granted that everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And so to be able to understand that breaking down things that we take for granted and sharing for others could be gold for somebody else.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, anyway, I'll just toss it back to you and then we can jump right in.
It's, and you're right. And it's taken me, I can't tell you how many people have come up and said to me, "Oh, you need to teach people this. You need to teach people. You need to do this." When I started the Beauty Business Mastery, my goal was to create some online courses and then, have a website and then write a book and then coach. Well, as soon as I told one of my friends who I've been, known for probably about 8, 9 years that I was doing it, she goes, "Oh no," she goes, "I want to be your first client." And so I'm coaching, which is what I planned on doing last, but she needed me. So, flipping it around the other way. Um, and it's gives me such pleasure. One of the things when people sign up for a 20-minute strategy call with me, a complimentary one, I always send an assessment questionnaire. And the assessment questionnaire, in fact, Marcel was telling me the other day, she goes, "This is really good questions," made me really think. But when I get the questionnaire back, it just gives me a real sense of, okay, you got this, you got this, you got this. Oh, I can help you here. I can help you here because, again, knowing what your expertise is, what is it can you help other people with, and how much more. And now it's fleshing out more. I've had, as life happens, as we all know, when we're developing a new business with Carefree Beauty, I had a timeline that I had to get to a certain level. With Beauty Business Mastery, I'm going to just let it flow the way it's supposed to and help the people that I'm supposed to, and move along with that, because I'm always keeping busy, always wanting something, new to learn, listening to a book this morning, and, always just increasing the education. I mean, I don't have a college education, but I've been learning for, I had a friend of mine say, "You don't have a college degree, but you have a PhD in marketing with all the stuff that you know." And I thought, and this came from a University of Washington professor. So I'm like, okay, I'm good. And it was so funny because we had so many people, in our heads, if we think, and if you're anything like me, I always felt, I have four siblings, three sisters and a brother. All of them are educated. My brother's a doctor, my sister's a master's in nursing, another one's a drafting engineer, the other one's an accountant. And I always considered myself to be the stupid one. Okay. And well, I know you look at me and you're like, what, but I did, because I didn't go to college. And it wasn't until I became, I think, a top 5 franchise in Aloette, and I had my family come to one of our big events, in Nashville. And my younger sister looks at me, she goes, "You're kind of a big deal here." I went, "Okay, yeah." And she goes, "I had no idea," So it was just, sometimes you just got to hear that a few times to actually know that you're okay, and that you're in a good spot, and that you're better than you think you are. And we do this self-talk in our head, and it's not always positive, right? And we're always thinking, "Oh, she's doing so much better. He's doing so much better than me." And we compare ourselves to other people. Whereas we're not walking in their shoes and they're not walking in ours. There's
Right.
life that happens. My daughter got married December 30th. We just moved into a new home. My son's getting married in August. So there's things that take our time. And I'm part of a mastermind group, and I find it very interesting that over half of the people that are in this group are my age or older, because
Mm,
there's still fire in the belly. There's
yes.
still stuff that we have that we want to share, and we're not too old. Okay. We're not too young and we're not too old. We still can, share our expertise. And it's not about a college degree. It's all about the life education. Experience teaches more, as any of you will know. Experience teaches more than any education you can get out of a book. And that's invaluable.
That's so true. And I have a college degree, but I think about what I learned in college, and I can recite different things that I've memorized or whatever, but really it's confidence.
Hmm.
To me, I think that's the gift of, any kind of an academic degree. But you could glean that from all of your accomplishments as well.
Hmm.
So our mindset, like you're saying, is so critical. And having a teachable spirit and being, willing to learn. And
Yep.
so for all of you who are on the call today, you definitely have a teachable spirit because
Hmm.
you're wanting to increase your knowledge, you're wanting to learn. And I think that's the important part for the human spirit is, I don't consider myself, and I think, okay, I haven't arrived yet. That's how I think of myself. It's like I'm a late bloomer and
Hmm.
I'm excited for what God has for me in the future. And I'm willing to keep pushing forward. I don't see myself being interested in retiring anytime soon. I have lovely interests like my grandkids and garden and different things that really feed my spirit and my soul. But I have ambitions like you do, and I have, and it's really biblical. Without a vision, my people will perish. And so
Hmm.
it's having that vision for something bigger that drives us and calls us, right?
It does. I had heard somebody say something. I actually wrote this and put it on my next to my desk. And it said, "What if at 95 years old that you're on your deathbed and you go and see God, and God said to you, and this is, I wrote it down for me because it was personal to me. I said, you did really, really good in Alouette. You really did in Carefree Beauty, but why did you slack in the next phase? You missed out on who you could be." And just going, you know what? Because I don't have to do beauty business mastery, but
Right.
it's a drive that I want to help others. And so that's where it's like, I don't want God saying to me, going, "You missed it." You missed it. And so, what is it that you got, any of us have in our hearts, that who we should be and who could we be? Because it's not over until it's over, right?
Right. Walking into our purpose.
Yeah.
That's really what it is,
Yep.
why are we here? The gifts you've given me, how can I be of service to others?
Right. Right.
And that's a question that's a beautiful one that we can all ask, regardless of our faith, right? Because
Yeah.
we
No,
all
it
have
doesn't make any
gifts
difference. It's, yep.
right. And so I love that. This is a beautiful conversation, but let's jump in because I think there's so much more to be gleaned that you shared. But I think the kind of the foundation of what you shared is important.
Mhm.
Um, you shared about 7 touch points.
Yep.
And so what do you consider a touch point? And can you give us some concrete examples of some touch points that you have used in the past with your clients?
So back in the old days, which some of us can remember, when there was no internet, right?
Right.
Our only touch point to meet new people that was comfortable maybe not always comfortable, but network meetings, right? And
Hmm.
most of us belong to multiple ones. And we would go and we'd meet new people. We gave our 30-minute or 30 minute, our 30-second commercial, our 45-second commercial, and met other people that were like-minded. You had a vendor table. That was the way that we got to meet people and got them. Most of us, when we started with the networking, our thought was, okay, I want to get a client out of this, right? How many clients can I get out of this one? Or who can I bring in? When I moved to Seattle, when I was an Aloette franchise president, and I moved to Seattle, I knew one person in the state of Washington. And again, keep in mind, we paid $89,000 for a franchise. I, 28 years old, had absolutely no idea we were going to make this happen, had absolutely no business experience at all, nothing. But I knew how to sell and I knew how to recruit. I knew how to talk to people. And so I literally 6 days a week, Sunday was the day I didn't work. 6 days a week would go to the mall. I would go to wherever I was and I'd start conversations with people. And I learned very quickly, to strangers, all you have to do is compliment them. Find something you can compliment them on. Now, it can't be insincere. It has to be real. So, if somebody had, a gold buckle, it was a woman had cool boots, or, you know, keep in mind this was the 80s. So, big hair, earrings, stuff like that, and started conversations. And if I connected with that person, I offered them the opportunity to get a free makeover. And in the process of getting the free makeover, I could talk to them about the business opportunity of Aloette, and or maybe possibly having a home show. And that is how I built the business. So, because it was the only way I could. I didn't have networking. There wasn't, in the 85, there really wasn't networking groups back then at that point. So it was literally going one-on-one and talking to people. And so we took, in 5 months, took the franchise from $2,000 to $20,000 just by me talking to people and just meeting them. Was I scared? Oh, heck yeah. Did I say everything perfectly? No. Did I go out and get leads every time? No. But I gave myself an absolute, when I first started, it was like, okay, I got to get one person who says yes. And this is a true story. This is actually, I've got this in my book, is that the very first time when I learned how to do this and to go out, I remember going to the mall, and I was very new in the business. And I remember going to the mall and saying, okay, I'll talk to 5 people. So the first person I talked to saying, hi, my name is Molly. I'm an Aloette beauty consultant. Would you like a makeover? No. Okay, there's one. Okay, now did I do it right? No. Okay. So I went to the next one going, okay, that didn't work so well. So how can I just, tweak this? So I, go up, hi, my name is Molly Klipp. What you here for? You shopping, and then again, no, got shot down. Third time, improved a little bit better, and, got somebody, okay, but yeah, thank you. Give me your card. I'm good. And walks away. So we get to that point. Then the fourth one, we got a little closer. The fifth one says, oh yeah, I would love to. That would be really fun. I said, here's my card, call me. And I left because I got one yes. Okay. That is a true story. And so I had absolutely no clue how to do this. And I didn't do it again for like 8 months because I was so scared about doing this. This was before I became a franchise president. So knowing that we are learners and that we can continue to learn. I'm also a huge believer in, listening to tapes, and there's so much information at our fingertips now that wasn't there. Remember cassette tapes? John Maxwell is always been my favorite. And I remember listening to his Enjoy Life cassette tapes. And years later, I actually went to an Amway convention, just up in Canada, not for Amway, but he was talking and I wanted to hear him. And so we had friends of ours that invited us to go, and he had just written the book Connections. And I brought my book for him to sign. And when I walked up, I'm thinking, okay, there's a long line. And I mean, I've been listening to this guy for 25 years. And I'm sitting there going, how am I going to connect with him that he'll remember me? Right. And so as I go up, and I told him, I said, I have been listening to you since Enjoy Life cassettes. And he goes, oh my gosh, those pink cassettes. I said, yes, I've been listening to him forever. And he goes, what's your name? And I said, Molly. And he goes, Molly McBee, and it's, oh, my dad used to call me that, and we had this conversation, and I'm like, and I'm sitting here feeling bad because these people are waiting, right? And he's sitting here, really, connecting. And I'm like, oh, you and I connected, right? We're connected. was, I mean, I was an idiot, but I didn't care. I got to meet the man who just I've listened to for hours on end,
Right.
who made such a difference in my life. And as I'm walking away, he's still talking to me. So
Oh,
it was just cool. And so the people you listen to, and, like Tony Robbins is somebody I listen to, Brian Tracy, Jim Rohn, huge influence on me.
I love Jim
The
Rohn.
first book I read was Think and Grow Rich. I took the Dale Carnegie course because somebody, who I respected told me it was really good. And I actually met my best friend there in 1985, taking the Dale Carnegie course, learning how to speak in public and what to do.
Right.
T. Harv Eker, might remember that
Oh,
Millionaire Money,
yes.
took all the
Yes.
classes and how to do all that, how to speak in public, how to put all that stuff together. So there's so many things that just build upon that. And so whatever it is that you're doing, it's not just learning the information about your business. You have to learn the information about people, how to be
Yes.
able to connect with people and how to make them feel important. It is more, you saw in my presentation, do you want to be interested or interesting? And interested, you're asking them questions about themselves and talking to them and asking them, how do you, so if I'm at a network group, how did you meet Cyndi? How did you get introduced to this group? How much, what are you doing? How is it that you are connected? Are you married? Do you have children? Anything that connects them to have a conversation that you can sit there and talk about it. I do that with my clients all the time. Just this morning I did I do cancer survivors eyebrows for free. And so I had a lady come in this morning to do it, an Indian lady, absolutely sweet and kind. You know, she's lived here she's been married 13 years, she's lived here 8 years, moved to Seattle from India. I know her entire life history. She has a 9-year-old daughter, she has two twin boys that are 7. The boys are in taekwondo, the daughter does Indian dance. She showed me the pictures how she does the make. I mean, all you have to do is to start engaging with people and they'll tell you anything you want to know. I remember one time taking Rudy, my youngest, he was probably 8, 9 at the time, going into J.C. Penney's and going in to have him try clothes. And as a mom, you're standing outside, come on, show me the pants, And so he comes out. And so this lady's sitting here talking and she has this little boy and we're talking. And so after Rudy was in there, I don't know how many things he tried on, comes out and I'm still talking to this lady and we walk away. He says, Mom, how do you do that? He says, you can get the life history of anybody in 5 minutes. And I'm like, all you have to do is ask questions. Be
Yeah,
interested.
that's right.
Interesting is you're talking about yourself. And there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with talking about yourself, but you want to make sure that you are connecting with them so that they are feeling that they are part
Right.
of the conversation. You asked me about, other connect points. So networking, social media has shifted things, but one of the things that I learned a long time ago is social media is rented space. Okay. And if a landlord decides that you are no
Yeah.
longer allowed to be in this rented space, then you're gone and you have no connection to the people you have on social media. I learned this the hard way. Okay.
That is brilliant. It's like I heard this similar analogy about a tree. Don't plant your tree in somebody's property, somebody's
Right.
yard.
Right. And social
Right.
media is rented space. If you do not have their email or their phone number or both,
Hmm.
they are not somebody you can continue to network with.
Right.
Okay. If it is all on social media, then I'm trying to think how many years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I got hacked. It was, yeah, I think it was 5 years ago. My daughter calls me up on a Tuesday. She goes, Mom, did you change your profile picture to an Islamic flag? And I'm like, no. So I go in and literally Facebook had shut me down. So I lost my personal page. I lost my business page. It's still wandering around there because I don't have an administration to go in there. I lost my Instagram page.
Oh
And
dear.
I kept going back to have them review it. I contacted somebody through one of our networking groups who knows all this stuff. She had a connection because you can't talk to anybody at Facebook. And so, I mean, we went round and round, couldn't do anything. I had to rebuild it under my maiden name because you can't go in with your real name. And I mean, had to rebuild the whole thing all over again. Now, again, I knew that going in and I wasn't panicked I was more panicked about the fact that, oh my gosh, all these pictures and all the stuff that I had in there. But I never ever counted on social media for my business. And quite honestly, very little of my business comes from social media. And even more so, during COVID, I did for the first time advertise because we didn't have networks, right? Groups to do. So I started doing Facebook ads. And I worked through a gentleman that I know through the permanent makeup industry. And it worked really, really well. My whole goal wasn't to make boatloads of money. My goal was is to be able to have it pay for itself. So you have to understand if you decide to do ads, what is it going to do for you? My goal was to have it pay for itself for the purpose of being able to bring me in new people that I wouldn't meet, which would then bring in more referrals. So it would create a whole new chain. In the last year, about this time, I actually started noticing that I wasn't getting the leads, and Facebook ads were, I was getting people calling from Minnesota and Kentucky, and and you're supposed to be able to target your ads where they go, and it wasn't working. So I stopped doing it and have been for the last while, just since then, just working on my referrals, and it's worked out very nicely. I work 3 days a week. It's lovely. I love it. But what I noticed in the last couple of months going, Google ads is starting to pick up, because one of the things is that Google, and if you ever go to test anything, you know, most of us write permanent makeup near us or Chase Bank near us, McDonald's near us. I mean, that's usually how we look for things now, right? And so what
Right.
happens is that Google, it used to be alphabetical. So when I named my beauty business, Carefree Beauty, it was at the front of the alphabet because at that time it was important to be at the front of the alphabet, right? Now it makes no difference, because if you have Google ads, if it says permanent makeup near us, the ones who have ads are always at the top, always. And if you look, it'll say sponsored, and that means it's an ad. All right. But most people don't pay attention to that. So it doesn't matter, because they're not going to sit there and go, oh, I'm not going to go to that. Now I do, because I know better, but most people don't. They just go to the first one going, oh, permanent makeup near us, has blah, blah, blah reviews. In the state of Washington, there's no laws saying you got to be trained, but there's nothing on their websites that say, oh, I haven't been trained a whole lot, but you can come see me anyway. They don't do that, right? So in my website, I have all that information in there. So, it's creating, I am going to start doing Google ads, because I'm just going to play with it. I want to see. I'm a learner, and it's one of those things of, I will always try something before I talk to somebody else about it. Right. If I've had a good experience, I'll tell you yes and why. If I've had a bad experience, I can sit there and go, yes, and this is why. And it might have been something that I did wrong. So being able to put those touch points. I have an email list in my website. I have a drop down opt-in box, which I will be putting into Beauty Business Mastery as well. And it's, would you like to sign up for my newsletter? And also the one in the Carefree Beauty one, it offers them a, a questionnaire. What type of brows should you get? Should you have microblading or powder or effortless eyebrows? And so I have it set up in Constant Contact. So as soon as it opts in, Constant Contact shoots out a letter with a questionnaire. And then I have it set up for 6 letters that are automatically sent out. And it talks about the vanishing brow, and it talks about, the different types of brows. And it's like every 2 days they get an email. Right. But now they're on my email list. And so every time I send a newsletter out, which goes once a month, then they are in that email list. I've had people come to me 2 years after they looked me up, because all of a sudden they looked in the mirror that day and said, oh my gosh, I got to do brows. Or I'll have people, they'll tell me going, yeah, I woke up in the morning and looked at my eyeliner going, I got to go see Molly. I mean, it's just every time somebody goes to put their makeup on, they're thinking about me. Right. Which is exactly where I want them. Right. So another touch point is the newsletter. I do once a month, I do the newsletter. And in January, I set up all my banners, and that's on all that slides. But I set up the banners for each month. And so all I have to do is send out, put that in. When I started doing my newsletters, it was kind of funny, because I my intention, okay, it's so funny how we start intentions. My intention was, I've been in the beauty industry for 43 years. I can give all these wonderful tips. And, even during COVID, I was going nuts. So I did these tutorials on, baby boomer makeup. And I did 2 parts of, baby boomer foundation and powder and cheek color. And then the second one was on eyeshadow and what kind of lips you should have. I did another tutorial on, it's all on my YouTube channel. I did another tutorial, what kind of earrings you should wear. I had another one about accessorizing. And then I did one on color, because I was going crazy. So I needed to do something. I'm a person who likes to have control. When I don't have control, I'm not happy. So, okay, good. So she was showing it. So my monthly newsletter, again, it started off with, I was going to do beauty tips. And I have to tell you, it started off with the beauty tips, but I found myself, and I always do it either at the very end of the month or the beginning of the next month. So it's end of the month, beginning of the month. And I started just going, oh, what's been happening in my life lately? And all of a sudden, it's like I started talking about my family, of what's going on, and I have a lot going on. So, it might be, and in fact, in January, I told him, I said, because I'd been talking about Maggie's wedding for a year, and I said, I'll do a special edition newsletter for Maggie's, for, sorry, my phone's ringing. I'll do a special a special edition for Maggie's wedding. So I sent, the whole thing was just Maggie's wedding and pictures and videos and stuff. And so I do family travel. Whenever I'm traveling, I'll always take pictures. I'm very intentional about the pictures that I take of what I do, so that I know. And sometimes I'll collage it. Sometimes I'll do individual. I do always throw in some beauty tips in there, pictures of what I do and what I offer. A Google review of somebody else talking about me, I always pop that in there. Bonuses for referrals, those are consistent. So the things that are consistent every time is pictures of what I do and what I offer before and after. A Google review, which changes every month, bonuses for referrals, that stays the same, a heartfelt thank you for choosing me. And I always have a picture at the end, and it might not necessarily be my headshot. It might be a picture of me and my daughter, the day she got married, or it might be a picture of John and I when we traveled to the Maritimes and went to Anne of Green Gables' house, or, just some different things that what I'm doing. Or then I also do some promotions of people in the beauty industry that I promote. The funny part about what happened is an average person is 22% open rate on sending emails out. That's the constant. And I get a 56% open rate. And I have to tell you, every single time one goes out, I usually get emails, 5 or 6 or 7 back. Because I always say, tell me what's going on in your life. And they'll send back an email and tell me what's going on in their life. I generally get 4 or 5 or 6 appointments from that newsletter, because again, it keeps you in touch with them. It keeps you with Beauty Business Mastery. I'm going to start doing that as well. I'm just going to start to level that one up. So that's going to be a goal that I'm going to have put with that. If anybody wants to get my newsletter, you can go to my website, carefree-beauty.com, and you can opt in on the newsletter. And the reason I say do it that way, I can put you on the list, but if you go in that way, you'll also see the letters, the automated letters that you can set up with Constant Contact. And I just have it set up, but it kind of gives you an idea of something, of how maybe you could use those letters, and you rework it to do it the way you want to. And those could be something that could be beneficial for you to gather emails with the people. Because again, that's your real estate, is the emails.
So
You've got to
again,
have
that was carefree.beauty.com.
carefree-beauty.com.
Carefree-beauty.com
Right.
to be able to access your website and get your newsletters.
And get the newsletter. And then you can get those letters, those automated those letters that go out. And you can opt out anytime you want,
Right.
but if it can be helpful to you of what to do, and I can't tell you how many times that, I'll put it out, and during the next 2 weeks, I'll have people going, I just got your newsletter. It was awesome. I had the best compliment from one of these ladies who came in. She's probably in her 40s or 50s, and she's in a high up corporate job. And she says, Molly, she goes, I got to tell you, she goes, I get marketing emails all the time. She goes, and I look at them and go, oh crap, another one. She goes, but when yours comes in, she goes, I open it up immediately and I read it because it's happy. So,
Well, and also it's not promotional, like jamming it down people's throats. You're sharing your life.
Right.
And that's
Be authentic.
beautiful, that people get to know you better and build that know, like, and trust factor that we all always talk about.
Exactly.
I want to just, really focus on your zone of genius is your systems and structures that you've
Yeah.
set up in all of your businesses.
Yeah.
And and what I've noticed about you, and I try to do this in my own, kind of how I do things as well, is focus is so important.
Yeah.
And so what I've noticed about you, Molly, whether it's moving from your house, and your big house that you had, was that Linwood?
Yeah. It was in Linwood. Yep.
Linwood,
Mhm.
or starting a new business, starting a new endeavor, you're really very tunnel vision. You
Mhm.
don't allow a lot of distractions. I think that's something that's noteworthy for us as entrepreneurs, because we were talking about balls. We're always throwing a lot of balls are in the air, but if we have something that we're working on, talk about the importance of just being able to zero in on that and focus on it and create the systems and structures around that, so
Yes.
that when you need to move on or when something else is going on in your life, that's still in play, right? Those
Right.
systems and
Right.
structures are still
So the
fulfilling your
systems and
purpose.
automation, that's one of the things when I started Carefree Beauty, because I sold my franchise, and I think that I probably one of the only ones that ever sold an Aloette cosmetic franchise.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody else thought of it. Um, so when I started Carefree Beauty, it was like begin with the end in mind. So everything I set up in Carefree Beauty is with the intention that I can sell it when the time comes. So
Yes.
all the systems I put in place, so the automation, the CRM that I have, that, that's my booking system that has every client in there. It has their birthdays. It has the anniversary of when I saw them the last time. Um, I set up, mailbox power, which has been a huge part of what I've used for that. Because I send out, and every January I redo the postcards. There you go. I redo the postcards every year and go into Canva, which I love, right? And I send out in mailbox power. I have the date of the last time I saw them, so they get a postcard that tells them, hey, how's your permanent cosmetics going? Do you need a color boost? And I had a client tell me about this one. I use a QR scan. You'll see it on that postcard right there, and this one right here. And they can actually scan it and it will go to my booking, so they can literally book their own appointment there. I do a lot of online booking. It's funny because I've talked to different people about, I don't get a lot of phone calls. Okay. Most people book online. Most people book an email with me. I don't get a lot of calls. And, I have my buddy Penny, all she gets is calls, but she won't do anything online. And I'm thinking, why am I wasting my time? Right? If I can automate something and have it all taken care of, so much easier.
Right.
Birthdays, I have the birthdays in there and they get a birthday card, and I get people, thank you so much for my birthday card. I'm like, you're welcome. I didn't remember doing it, but it's automated. It's all done automated. When somebody sends me a referral, I send them a thank you card and brownies and, brownie points. And during COVID, I started doing during COVID, I started doing that. Again, needed something to do. Went back a year, and I can't tell you, people would rather get the brownies than the $50 off they get for the procedure. I had people taking the pictures of the brownies and putting it on social media. Look what I got. I mean, it was hilarious. It was so funny. I even had people, they were getting so many, they kept putting them in the freezer so they could eat them later. I have a postcard that says thank you. So when I've, like I had the lady this morning, I'll send her thank you note after her second appointment. But if somebody comes in for a color boost, I send them the thank you card. Again, it's a personal touch. It's a touch point. Um, the when I talk to a lot of people who are in the beauty industry, they don't do the extra steps. And as much as this takes time, it only takes the time for me, it only takes the time to go in on my phone. I do this all on my phone. And it only takes the time that I go in to put their name, their address, their anniversary, their birth date in there, put them into the automated list. It takes like 2 minutes to do each one. And at the end of every day, I will go through and I make sure that any cards that need to go out are taken care of. It takes 2 minutes. It's the setup that takes the time. And then after the setup is all done, piece of cake, and it makes a huge difference. I send out for Aloette because I still sell product. During BOGO, I send out a postcard. I've already know my next step for beauty business mastery, I'm going to use a postcard and I'm going to do a QR scan that's going to send them to a landing page, which is going to have a video of me introducing myself and what is it that I do. And then I'm going to I've got this all in writing. I am very focused on what I'm doing.
There's that
And
word.
I'm going to have a video in there that will give them the first tutorial on buckets of money. And then I'm going to
Right.
offer them, a $47, three class session on something else that I'm going to offer. And that's all going to be on my landing page. And it's going to send from a postcard that I'm going to mail to all the beauty salons in the area. I'm going to send them to every SPCP convention, permanent makeup person I know. I'm going to mail them out, and it will have the QR scan on there. And I'm not sure what the card's going to say yet. I'll make that up as I go. I also use Gigi, which is a AI, which my mastermind works from that. And I've already, because I know, I mean, in mastermind, they want you to build everything with social media. To me, I know what I'm good at, and I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at creating things that make people want to be around me. And that's how I'm going to build the beauty business
Mm.
mastery, so I can
Hmm.
help people and get in front of them to help them.
Right. That's beautiful. Okay, so I want to touch on a couple of things with systems, instructions, automations. We
Yep.
all know that. We all hear that. We
Yep.
hear it from the best of the best, like Molly. I've heard it from John Maxwell, and they all talk about that as a critical touch point in creating those systems and structures. The thing that scares people is what you said. Now, the actual sending the
That,
card, sending the email, sending the text usually only takes a few minutes.
right.
It's the setup that gets people.
Right.
And
Right.
so the analogy I always give people, and I'd love to hear if you have some similar ones, is painting. When you paint a room,
Hmm.
the painting is not hard.
Mm,
It's all the setup. It's
right.
taking everything out of the room and deep cleaning it and, masking things off and getting your supplies and then you just paint it. And every time I get to the painting part, I'm like, oh, this wasn't so bad. Maybe I'll paint the
Right.
whole house, you
Right.
know? And then you got to put it all together and clean up and all that. And it's like, okay, that was a lot, but the actual painting wasn't hard.
No, we just painted our whole house before we moved in, so I can totally get into that
You
analogy.
you you get that analogy, but that's the thing that people have to understand when you're creating systems and structures, get
Right.
your mindset in the place that it's going to take a little bit. It's going to
Right.
take some focus, it's going to take some preparation. I'm going to have to go through my contact list, I'm going to have to cull, I'm going to have to update,
Yep.
put it in the system, but once you do, it saves you so much time. So I think
So
that's
much.
that's so brilliant of you, the way you
Well, and again, my whole thing set up is that when the time comes, I'm going to sell my business. I have mailbox power with everything in there automatically automated, and I can transfer those CRMs from the client. I mean, I've got it all set that I can do it.
Yeah, and I have had people, do that with the intention of selling their business and transferring their account.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that it is you're monetizing your account, your business,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
you're
And
making it
people,
valuable.
the people in the beauty industry, and I've seen this in the 40 years that I've networked. How many times have you seen a beauty professional at a network meeting?
Not very often.
Nope, you don't see them there. They don't monetize themselves. They don't. And this is where I want to teach them is they're missing out on being able to build their businesses. And if they can automate themselves on some things that are going to be able to make a difference, man, you can build a very, very good business.
Right. Right. That's beautiful. I love that. I want to circle back on one more thing too, because you mentioned, and I mentioned this at the meeting, the traditional email open rate is 22%, and
Yep.
yours is 56%, which is phenomenal.
Yep.
And a little plug for snail mail, 100%.
Yep. 100%. I know. I love that. Yeah. The snail mail is
Right?
100%.
And so you want to do things that you're going to get as in front of as many people as you can.
Right.
Be wary of social media because again, you're planting a tree on somebody else's property and
That's
you
right.
lose control over that.
Right.
So I have this automation slide up, which you've been talking about. Is there anything else you want to um, focus
If
on with that?
if you can get into an automation system, if you have a client that you have an appointment with, are you just like, let's say you set up an appointment next Wednesday with somebody to talk to. Are you calling them, emailing them, texting them reminders that they're coming, that you're going to meet, that you can't wait to talk to them. Anything that you can, and you can create automation. If you've got a CRM system that has an automation, I don't pay that much for what I have here, but I know the calendars, there's a lot of different ones out there that you can look up what they do. But when you're looking for something that's going to have a calendar system to you, get one that has reminders that will automatically go out for you. My CRM sets it up that, when I book it, I send them an email, and if I book it myself, I have to push that email out. But if they go online and they book it, it automatically goes out. And then a week before, they get another email, 4 days before they get another email. And then a day before, they get a text message from me, so that everything is all relation. Most of us, any doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, we're getting those
Right.
text messages. That's all, mine is all set up. Even if, and especially if you're a solopreneur, this is even more important to do, because you don't have that backup to have people do this for you. You've got to
Right.
make sure that you set things in place that it looks like you have this whole office working for you.
That's beautiful. I love that. And whether you're what I like to do too is create templates. And
Mhm.
so like the first time I send something to somebody, or just kind of working through it. And
Right.
then every time I go back and find that template and I'll
Yep.
modify it. Right.
Always. Word
Right. And then
document, put it into a file that you can go back and copy and paste. Do not try to reinvent the wheel every time.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. And we
Yep.
need to just give ourselves permission to, yes, you write that first sentence that's
Yep.
personal to that person.
Right.
So but we all have a lot of things on our plates, and the more things we have systematized, automated,
Right.
is important. So we're at the 12:48 point. I know we have a lot of wonderful um, friends on the line here. And so I just wanted to give it to you do you have anything else you want to share before we open the lines?
Why don't we give them 10 minutes and find out what they want to know?
Okay, awesome. Okay, so feel free to unmute yourself. And this is your opportunity to get your questions answered from Molly. And so, Brenda, I see that you've unmuted yourself.
Well, just thinking while you were talking about so many things, Molly, I realized I don't get your letter anymore. And I
Okay, you
used to for
probably
years.
unsubscribed it.
Yeah, well, and I don't remember doing that, but I
Okay.
think of you every single day, obviously, when I'm putting on my makeup. So as soon as I look myself in the mirror, I think of Molly every single day. So I don't really need to be reminded that you're out there, but I just realized I don't get that anymore. And I used to, and you
I
know,
will go in and look.
it's funny because how many years ago did we actually start talking about you? I mean,
Oh,
quite a few years before
probably when I started, Brenda,
yeah,
right
before
when
I
I started
finally
11
had it
years ago.
done last year, but
Yep.
or had it redone.
Hmm.
So it's a testament. But I always got your newsletter, right? So even though we weren't in a networking group together all the time, you did definitely stay top of mind. So it's that's very helpful. I just wanted to give that testimonial.
No, thank you very much. Anybody
So
else?
feel free to just chime in, Patrice.
Mhm.
Molly, you mentioned that you use a CRM. Are you able to share?
Oh yeah, it's
with
called Envision Now, Envision. And it can go under patient now. They kind of married them together. So and when I'm coaching my clients, I recommend this because it's not expensive, and it can go a whole. And this is used for booking. For my procedures, but it also allows me to put in photos. It allows me to put in formulas of, whatever products I'm using on them, what kind of brows. Um, it has a whole lot in there. So it depends on what you're using it for.
And does it also communicate with Constant Contact?
The Constant Contact runs with they do have an email system that you can use through theirs. I've been using Constant Contact for like 25 years, so I know it really well. So my website, the opt-in page, leads it to the automation for Constant Contact. So you go into Constant Contact to do the automated letters, and they will actually tell you how to connect it up. And actually, you can even call Constant Contact. They'd help you with it too.
Hmm.
So it's
Okay.
Constant Contact that leads that automation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff, I see you've unmuted yourself. Do you have a question?
I have. Apologies for being late. I completely forgot it and I was out running around. You know, one thing I really liked in your talk today was the personalization and getting to know people. I find that that is one of the best ways to create that relationship. And in business, you're really in the relationship business, and the business secondary often to that. The four things when I am helping people, me myself, I have to remind myself to do it.
Mhm.
Like, listen, trust, join.
Yep.
Like you before they listen to you, before they trust you, before they join you. And
Mhm.
that's my formula that I've used. And you're also using a couple of power quotes that I love. I've got a list of probably hundreds of power quotes that
Yep.
I pull out once in a while. And it was the be interested, not interesting.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
For men in particular, that's a good rule because we love talking about ourselves and to get our minds out of that mode and go into the being
Into the
interested.
listening mode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
into
one of my
listening
favorite
mode.
ones that I think. And you know, the other aspect of it, not that I'm teaching or trying to steal any thunder,
No,
but
no, 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 please.
is,
We can
is
all learn from each other.
there is no, you know, the speed limit on a relationship is slow. It's not fast. Never
Mhm.
rushed, never rushed to
Mhm.
get to that sale.
Mhm.
And, you know, I think that going back to the being in the people business, I find it fascinating to just get to know people and understand, and you get to learn the most interesting things about someone.
Yep.
I've got a good friend that is, he's old. He's in his 80s, bald. And he showed me a picture of himself, and he will never show it to anyone else, of him when he was young and had an afro.
Mhm.
You can see the face there, but the hair is like that's a wig, man.
Right, right.
Anyways, I did love your presentation. I actually took notes on your CRM, and I think I'm a systems guy myself. I love
Mhm.
systems, particularly if they're automated and low maintenance. Because
Yep.
you time, you know, you could spend time doing the rest of your business. So
Yep.
thank
Well,
you.
because you want to take the time to be creative, use your mind to be
Yeah.
creative, that you can do what you do well, which is with people.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I didn't talk about was reviews, getting reviews. And again, you know, you talk about the touch points. My client who left here today, she was all excited about having new eyebrows. And I said, would you write a review for me? I said, because people believe you every day of the week. Okay, over me every time. So, you know, when you are looking at getting reviews, because it is important, people do read reviews. Google is the, you know, Google's the most popular search engine, 85% search on Google, you know. And so the more reviews you can get people to write about you there, that's going to be, you know, that is vital. So getting reviews, you know, and you have to ask. I mean, I have a thank you that goes out to them. Um, but I find that if I just send the thank you out and they have, you know, ask for the review, they don't do it. But if I ask them before they leave and I said, I'll send you a link, would that be okay? People believe you over me every day of the week. Would you mind writing one for me? Most of the time they do it.
Yeah.
You might want
You're
to say too, would you please do me a favor? Would you
Mhm.
mind doing me a favor and
Mhm.
leaving so I can affect my, you know,
Yep. Yep, exactly. You know, always asking permission.
I love the quote about that your social media, you're renting space.
Yep.
And what your business systems and processes remind me of marketing strategy, and it's called blue water strategy.
Mhm.
Familiar with that?
Mhm.
And that's what you have in your mix of that's what you have in your mix.
Mhm.
You're out there where people in your business are not in that space and not doing it like that. You've
Well,
got,
and that's where, you know, it's so many of the things that I do are not complicated. They're so not complicated. They're very simple. And you know, the easiest things for people to do is to, or I should say the hardest thing for people to do is to connect with other people, you know, especially in today's younger, you know, people, they just want to be on their phones and text, and they don't want to talk to anybody. I mean, you see it in commercials. Trying to think what commercial it was, but you know, one lady's like, oh, I don't talk to anybody. You know, I only do my phone. And you can get away with that in in a certain thing, like because of my automated, I don't talk to people on the phone very much, but when they're in the room, they're in my chair, they are mine. They are mine there for the 2 hours or however long I got them, and they are mine, and they're my special people, and I love on them. It's important to give them the extra. Anybody else have any questions? I love it. Thank you for your information.
So Molly, I'm going to have you close with your offer, because you have a very generous offer. And let me just go ahead and put this slide up here.
So what I'm offering is a 20-minute free strategy call, okay, to answer maybe some burning questions you have. When you can text me, do I have my phone number on there? No, I don't. Okay. We have the sheet, but I can give you the phone number, 425-280-9088. And so 425-280-9088. But what I'll do is we'll set up a time. Send me your email address as well, and I will send you an assessment questionnaire that I send to you beforehand. And then we set up a time and we have a conversation and see if there's anything I can do to help you, or maybe just help you out of this one particular thing. So very, very happy to do that. And it's a time that I can get to know you too and see how I can help you out. For my Carefree Beauty people, if anybody, wants a new procedure in the month of May, you get $60 off or $30 off of a color boost.
Awesome. Okay, so the way to book the 20 minutes is by texting you.
Texting you at 425-280-9088.
And then including your email.
And include your email with me. I can ask
Perfect.
you. You can just text me and say, hey, Mimi, I want a 20-minute call.
Perfect. Okay. Last call for questions. Anybody else have any questions or insights? You guys have been great. Really appreciate the joining our conversation today. And Molly, we've talked about you doing a 2-hour skill shop. And I think we should really, after August, I know you've got a wedding coming up, but I think you and I should circle back and really consider doing a 2-hour skill shop where we can meet in person and be really able to have a little more hands-on in terms of the strategies that you've used and the systems and structures. Because I think more after, my sense is we've always heard and known through all these different wonderful authors, John Maxwell and Jim Rohn, we've always heard how important relationships are. I personally think that there was a shift that occurred worldwide after COVID, and we all realized really how important they are. I mean, in our lifetime, like valuing them and just being able to be in each other's midst and see each other eye to eye and hug each other and shake hands and just be in each other's presence is so important. So all of your beautiful insights about relationships and how to nurture those relationships have been really beautiful. So thank you for that.
No, it's what works. You've got to be able to understand who, we're not dealing with robots. We're dealing with people and real feelings.
And it's how to make those people feel,
Special.
important and special. And I love the quote that you shared, and it's one I use a lot as well. You want to share that?
Which one?
Theodore Roosevelt one?
Oh, Roosevelt. People want to know.
People don't care what you know.
People don't care what you know. They want to know that you care before they'll even talk to you. So yeah.
And that's so
More
true.
important.
It's so true.
And that was written in 1901. So it's more true today than ever.
It is. It is. So anything you want to leave us with? Any closing comments? Thoughts?
All of us, who are exceptional connections and around, we are in businesses for ourselves. We're solopreneurs. We feel sometimes we're alone and that nobody else knows what it feels like to be in business. And I was listening to a podcast this morning, from Dean Graziano, and I one of the things that it really struck me is that we have people that we can ask questions of. We have people that we can gather information from at our fingertips. And sometimes we're too embarrassed in thinking, if I ask a question, then they're going to think I'm stupid. Or if I ask a question, they're going to think that I don't have all my stuff together. Because the more successful you are, the more you think that somebody's going to think that you don't have all your stuff together. Because, we heard years ago, fake it till you make it. Well, sometimes you just have to step back from that thought pattern and go, okay, I'm kind of weak in this spot and I really could use some help. So who can I talk to that will give me the help? And so being
Right.
open to asking questions and being able to ask for the help, get the resources. It's there.
That's beautiful. And that's why at Exceptional Connections, the community is so important. And
Yeah.
we built the champion community because we are in business by ourselves, but we don't have to be alone.
No.
We have each other and each other's back and resources. And so thank you so much for generously sharing your brilliance with our May Exceptional Connections in person and our virtual community today here in our conversation to connect. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but stay on for just a moment because I've got an announcement here. So remember,
Lovely to have all you people here. Thank you for coming.
that's right.
This was a treat.
Remember to make every connection an exceptional connection. And thank you again, Molly.
Thank you.